The first question that I always have when we start looking at things like this is, what is the consequences of something? So something happened and we had this massive unrest and lots of people all over the place breaking and stealing and taking and moving and whatever they did. And what is the effect or what is the consequences of that? Question one, I think, is how would this affect the risk, or how can we determine that the risk or the effect on the risk that this would have? Now, if I look at that, I think the first thing that springs to mind is to understand where our data, and if I say our data, I'm talking about my data if I'm a credit provider, I'm talking about your data as a credit provider, where are they in this process? Which status do they find themselves in? Regional wise, have they been in the heart of this? Have they been on the side of this? Is it that a very large portion of them have been exposed to this? Or how and where does your debtor find himself in that? Now, not just that part of it, but then the outflow of that. So if it is that a very large portion of one of your debtors have been exposed to this, what does it leave your debtor with? And how is it going to affect your debtor? Second thing I think we must look at is the change in how you're going to determine this risk. How are you going to determine how the risk has changed? How are you going to understand if the risk has changed? Is it going to be by the sales that you see? Is it going to be by no commitment for payment? Is it going to be the way that you communicate with your debtor? Is it going to be that there's no communication from your debtor? And then, of course, are these claims going to be settled? And have you been insured by it? Peter, if I may include you into this part now, and we're going to work a little bit in reverse. If a client has supplied a specific debtor that was exposed to this huge uproar or riots or unsettlement that we've had, and they've had no insurance, what do you think the effect would be on someone like that?
If you mean that the buyer didn't have proper insurance to cover
Correct.
against what has
Correct.
happened,
Correct.
yeah. That is obviously I think you with this question you go straight to the core of it. It shows, I think, what has happened over the last week, how important, for that matter, insurance is, and taking up the SESRIA cover, and companies that haven't been insured, and they have been disrupted in their trading, or they had to stop trading, or they lost everything, their premises from where they work on, and they didn't have proper insurance or contingency plans in place. I'm afraid that it will be very difficult to recover from what has happened, depending, of course, to the extent of how they have been affected. But so I think that is really a key question, that as a credit provider, so if you're trading with your clients, is also probably one of the first questions to ask to your clients if they resume trading or they resume procuring from you. Like, okay, well, what type of contingency plans do you have in place? Were you insured for these losses here, and yes or no? And how are you going to survive or rebuild your company over the next few months? And how are you going to finance that? And how are you getting support from your banks, suppliers, and other stakeholders in giving you some time to rebuild? If you haven't got proper insurance in place and there's no indemnification that you can look forward to that can help you rebuild the company, I think it's going to be very difficult.